Thanks, guys, for joining us. We're going to do a little semi-instant reaction to the playoff rankings that just dropped, Bob.
Yeah.
Um, a little different than what we had guesstimated
Right.
on our last episode, but not too far off.
Yeah.
Anything that jumped out at you right off the bat that surprised you a little bit?
Uh, I thought Notre Dame might jump Penn State a little bit. Thought that might happen.
Yeah, I'm surprised it didn't actually.
Indiana's at 10. Not shocker there. I do believe that they wouldn't have been in though had not been for
A crazy weekend.
yeah.
It saved them. Luckiest team. A lot of people say we were the luckiest. I would say Indiana was because they had gotten eliminated.
Yeah, they played poorly. I don't care what some of the people on these talk shows are saying. Like you mentioned, Tim, they had a good drive at the beginning of the game, and they had a good drive whenever Ohio State
prevent
defense, and the rest of the game they had 6 yards.
Yeah, 6 yards outside.
And you can tell me that team deserves to be ahead of some SEC teams and should be ranked 10th? No. I'll be gladly play them. Let's go over the rankings real quick, guys. That way we can have a little discussion there, and then we're going to talk about some other stuff about this, and then we'll kind of go back to the rankings a little bit, talk a little bit about some other stuff. But real quickly, Oregon at number 1, Ohio State 2, Texas 3, Penn State 4. Nothing changed there. Notre Dame 5 didn't change. I think Miami was 6 last week too, wasn't he?
I believe so.
Georgia 7, Tennessee 8, and currently under the way it is right now, Tennessee would play Georgia at Georgia. Now, I don't think that's going to be the way it's going to be. We got a question here from Wes Marshall. Okay, do you know the schedule of it? What do you think, like I guess he's referring to who we play? Is that what you mean, Wes? Throw us another question out there, bud. Clarify that just a hair. SMU number 9, Indiana 10, Boise State 11, Clemson 12, Bama 13, Ole Miss at 14, South Carolina 15. They really look like they're trying to get Clemson in there and get 3 ACC teams in there, which is, Tim, we can talk about this for a while here, but
that would be putting Clemson, ACC on equal footing with the Southeastern Conference.
Yeah, and that's a joke.
Both conferences getting 3. Yeah, that would be
a joke. This whole thing needs to be totally redone next year. There needs to be some changes, and there needs to be some rules put in place beforehand, because this has been a little bit of a disaster. I mean,
or is it? They get people to look every weekend or every Tuesday to their thing because no one knows what the committee's going to do for 1 week.
Well, I mean, TV rankings wise,
the ratings, yeah.
I mean, as far as the ratings go, now, will the ratings be as good come game time? I don't think so, because I feel like the ratings would be much better if, let's say, Texas was playing an SEC team that we know is better than SMU, we know is better than Indiana, we know is better than Boise State. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I think the group of 5 is going to remain for at least a few more years. So whether it be Boise or UNLV or whoever it may be, that's going to remain the same. It is just simply the bottom of the Big 12 and the ACC. How many of these teams are actually fit to be in the top 12? I mean, look, their records are going to be fine.
Right. But Boise State doesn't deserve to be in there.
Well, they don't deserve, but we're stuck with them for a little while.
See, that's my problem with this ranking. What Boise State doesn't, they're not one of the top 12 teams in the country.
Steve, I hadn't really gave it a whole lot.
Okay, read his question.
Okay, Steve Kreis wants to know what we think the final spread will be for the
UT win. I like the way you word that, Steve.
Yep. Steve thinks it's going to be fairly close by Vols by 7. I like the fact that Vandy's struggling here at the end of the year. They've dropped 3 of the last 4 games, and
Right.
Pavia is banged up some.
I think that's the key. Pavia is banged up,
Yeah.
and he's been their leading rusher this year.
Yeah, leading rusher, leading passer. They need a first down. He gets it for them. But they had to keep pulling him in and out of that last game.
Yeah.
Because he is hurt.
Which now they're going to lay it all on the line because there's nobody, a Vanderbilt team, and I'm sure Stephen will agree with this. There is nobody Vanderbilt would rather beat and knock Tennessee out of the playoffs. I mean, it would be as them making the playoffs.
And it would be a very Tennessee thing to happen too.
It would be. I mean, we're all nervous about it right now. Yeah. I mean, I am.
I'm personally going to go just a little bit higher, even though it's a quote road game.
Spread's 10 now.
Yeah,
I think.
It's not really much of a road game. There'll be more UT fans there.
Right.
So I feel that makes it a lot better. I'm going to go by about 13.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to start diving into all the stats and everything else starting tonight and tomorrow to give a better idea. But
yeah, I agree.
But I agree. I think by far the biggest thing that I think is key is Pavia. I mean, because Pavia is, I think him being banged up is big, but just because he's, they just seem to somehow get 10 yards.
I mean, you can argue Pavia being the player of the year in the conference because of what he meant to his team.
Yeah, the most valuable player. Yeah, because he was the most valuable player for that team. Let's talk about, and guys, remember, throw some more chat stuff in there. We love talking about this stuff. Another problem I have with this thing, Tim, is they really have thrown strength of schedule out.
Yeah, I know Booger McFarland just was talking about how
Boogers,
the committee.
I can't believe we're taking advice from a guy named Booger. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
but anyway,
that's because everybody this past week has been talking about how the committee has been ignoring strength of schedule.
And they still are.
Yeah. So I'm sure the talking point before the show tonight was how, well, look here, we've got a team above another team with a better record. So, but the fact of the matter is, yes, Tennessee and Georgia is above SMU and Indiana with one more loss on their resumes. But if you go down through the whole list, it's been pretty obvious that their strength of schedule has been less of
than any of these rankings previously.
Yeah.
I mean, when there was top 4, it meant something.
Yeah.
And this, it's more about winning.
Yeah. And like you said, for the long-term health of college football, that's a bad thing because there's been a lot of talk of remaining at 8 games for the Southeastern Conference for teams not playing other quality opposition. You're going to look at multiple years of people avoiding good teams just so they can keep their record better. And that's bad for the game.
That's bad. I mean, you're going to see more Tennessee versus Austin Peay's and less Tennessee versus NC State, which may not be a good example this year. But
they were thought to be pretty decent.
Yeah, but decent other Power 4 teams, and that's bad for college football. Mr. Jones has a question. He says, it seems like the committee is trying to avoid matching up SEC versus Big Ten in the first round. I don't doubt that. And I'll tell you something else too. I hope doesn't happen, but I fully anticipate that they will put SEC versus SEC in at least one of these things if they can at all, because they don't want to have a Final Four of all SEC.
Well, I don't think you have to worry about that because the way they got it right now, they won't get 4 SEC teams in.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Good point. He also mentions that Michigan's AD, currently in the midst of cheating scandal, is the head of the committee. Yes, he is, and that's and it's a shocker that look at the rankings here. Number 1, Big Ten. Number 2, Big Ten. Number 4, Big Ten. And then you got an Indiana team that don't deserve to be there, in my opinion, still in there, and they're going to make it. So I don't. You can see obviously it's a Big Ten led committee, and the guy that's running it is from Michigan.
Yeah, I'm surprised they actually kept him as the head because they kind of fought against the NCAA when the investigation,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and
he
that's a
did
bad
that.
look.
It is. Yeah.
You know,
Now we will say there's 3 in, but there is a path to 4. Texas A&M, if they beat Texas and they win the SEC championship game, they are in, and they will be one of the top 4 seeds.
Mhm.
So, uh, so they got a possibility. And you got Bama at 13, Ole Miss at 14. I think Ole Miss is out because they don't have another good possible win.
South Carolina's interesting.
It's interesting. I have no idea. We mentioned that on the last video. If they was to beat the number 12 team, could they bump up? But now somebody would probably have to lose. I mean,
Oh yeah, there would definitely have to be someone lose, but South Carolina is really right now one of the hottest teams in the country. Their quarterback, Sellers, has improved throughout the course of the season to where he is one of the
yeah,
better quarterbacks in the conference right
yeah,
now.
he is.
And their resume would stack up pretty nice against anyone's right now.
Right.
And be honest about it, if they hadn't kind of got screwed with the LSU game in the officials,
Oh yeah,
they would be 9-2
yeah.
and inside the
Yeah.
conference right now.
Good point.
And that's
I forgot
something to
about that.
consider because the conference was taking care of LSU at the time because they was thought to be a likely playoff team.
Yeah,
And they didn't want to get them a quick loss at the first of the year, and they stuck it to South Carolina doing it.
some other stuff to talk about. For one, it looks like right now we're going against Georgia, and I'll just tell you right now, Tim. Now that some of you guys may have a different opinion, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I don't want to play Georgia, especially at Georgia. Uh, Georgia's beatable. Somebody I can see, some of these other teams possibly beating Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we can beat Georgia.
Oh, yeah, we could.
I would rather play Miami. I'd rather play Notre Dame, Penn State, Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, SMU. Anyone that's going to make this tournament, I would rather play in that first round than Georgia.
Yeah.
Georgia, I'd rather play somebody else, and hopefully somebody else knocks Georgia out, which is very possible because Georgia's not unbeatable. By
at a neutral field, I'll feel a lot better about Georgia.
Yeah.
I don't want to go down to Athens again.
But, that's the current seeding. Now, what could happen is that's the next thing I was going to talk about. What happens in the SEC championship game?
Yeah, because currently we would be visiting Athens for our game.
Right.
However, let's say Georgia goes there, Bob, they lose. And the next question is, what do they do? How do they count conference championship game losses? Is it ignored because it should be you should be getting the benefit of making your conference championship game, or will it be something that slides you down a little bit, or could we flip flop? They just slide down in one spot and they come visit us.
Right.
And
I
I prefer just skipping them all together.
Oh, yeah,
catch them in later round.
Yeah.
Get us a game underneath there.
But see, that's one thing I'd love for them to ask the committee chairman. What happens in the SEC championship game? Is the loss the same as a loss during the regular season? I've not heard nobody fully address this. And does a win potentially bump you up? I mean, I could see a win potentially bump you.
Well, if a win's going to put you in the 4, I mean.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, but it could. Might change your seeding.
Might change your seeding
in that 4, maybe
it could. But everyone in that seeding is going to have a conference championship game.
Yeah.
So
really, it's the loser that's the biggest.
It's the loser. How do they affect the losers?
We got another comment question here from. I'm not sure exactly how to say that, Tim. You want to give a shot there?
Some kind of posse.
Yeah.
I did say posse.
Posse. Yeah, I do see that. As the teams have been choking when they have the easy games to clinch, Heupel better make sure this team watch all those games from last week. I would think he is stressing that. I sure hope he is anyway.
I wouldn't be shocked if you had the scores of these last week's games multiple through.
Yeah, and I'm sure
throughout the facility.
I'm sure he's brought up the Alabama beat them, and the fact that Texas only only beat Vanderbilt by 3 points. I'm sure he's going to be bringing up those more so than the fact that Vandy's lost 3 out of the last 4. You know what I mean?
He won't mention that part at all.
I wouldn't, but we'll see. I mean, some of these guys, the coaches can say all they want, but what does the players in their head are thinking? Because I think some of these coaches have always stressed, you know, uh, need to be aware. But coaches say that probably every single week.
Yeah.
Even when he probably said it this week, when we played UTEP.
Oh yeah, you do.
But I think it may go somewhat on deaf ears because you hear it all the time. But I sure hope that it is brought up. I'm sure it is. Something else we was going to talk about, Tim. We talked about strength of schedule a little bit. The fact that this committee's not using it, and the next committee needs to bring that up straight off the bat. That strength of schedule is going to be more of a thing next year than it has been past, because otherwise ACC is never going to go to 9 games, or they'd be stupid to. And that's something we've been preaching for a while. And you talked, we was ahead of the game, I felt like, on this stuff. We've gotten a lot of things wrong. This 9 game, 10 SEC game thing, we warned people about that we was afraid that a 3-loss SEC team was going to get left out versus a
2-loss Big Ten team
or a 1-loss Big 12, and that's, looks like we're going to get left out over a 2-loss ACC or maybe even another 2-loss team somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
But one other thing I was going to talk about is, Reese Davis brought up something today. A lot of people got to talking, and he was saying that this thing needs to be revamped, and you want to discuss what his ideal, Tim?
Well, his was pretty simple. You still had the 4 buys, but you didn't give them to the conference champions. You just simply gave them to the top 4 seeds. And it was considering, because right now the 5th seeding in this tournament has a pretty damn nice seed, because they're going to be going up against the 12th seed, which is probably a group of 5 team.
Right. Probably Boise State.
Right. That should be fairly simple.
Maybe Boise State. Boise State maybe. That's another flaw. Boise State may get a bye.
They could,
because of how great they've played this year.
Well,
and Tennessee would smoke them. I mean, that's just what I think. I mean, come on.
But the 5 guy after that is actually then probably getting the Big 12 or ACC champion or something. You're getting a fairly simple, easy path for the first 2 games at the number 5 seed.
Yeah.
Somewhat disagree with Reese a little bit, because the benefit of just not playing anybody in one game is a guarantee. Yeah, you're already into the next stage.
I agree with you. I mean, a lot of people are saying the other, but honestly, I agree with you, Tim. I would rather play nobody in 1 week, because if it really is a national championship tournament here, where a playoff where these teams are all good and capable of winning it, then you wouldn't want to play anybody. I'd take a bye and give me the hardest team week 2. I would rather do that than to play 2 teams. That's more injuries, more fatigue, you name it. You know what I mean? It's just a lot of things to.
Well, personally, I think they need to. I don't have a problem with the champions getting the
give me
first
your
4.
ideal, because I like what you were saying better.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the conference champions getting rewarded for winning the conferences, even though the conferences may not be as strong as others. But having that, they need to reseed after the first round. That way, the top seed in let's say in this year, it might be Oregon, instead of having the potential to face a pretty good team, while the number 4 guy sits and plays an easier team.
Right.
You just reseed from there and go, whoever, if the number 10, 7, 8, and 6 teams won, then regardless of where the bracket shows, the top to seed would be taking on the 10th seed.
Yeah, just a little reseeding.
Yeah, just a
Second round reseeding, whatever.
Yeah,
because that's better than
you don't have to
giving-
reseed after that.
Yeah, that's better than somebody getting, because of an upset, getting an easier deal. You know what I mean? To me, I mean.
Do we have another chat?
Yeah, we do. The same guy there, Mr. Posse there, something about teams with nothing to lose, playing teams with everything to lose. These are still kids and they can do kid things.
Amen to that.
Oh, yeah, they can, actually. I mean, that's one thing to consider. I mean, there's some guys out there that are 17-year-old, Tim, playing. I mean, I don't know if you've heard about any of those guys.
I've heard there's one for Bama, but I don't know what he position.
I've not heard of him, but I heard there was a kid that was 17. I mean, yeah, that dude. I think I only heard he was 17 like 40 times.
But there's players that play tight, you know. They get, and there's kids that do play loose.
Yeah.
And I've seen it 100 times, man. The team that's got a little something to lose come out there, and you know, pardon the language, but their buttholes are about that tight.
Yeah, I mean,
and they play like it.
Yeah.
And the team's got nothing to lose. Just come out and have fun. Just let it hang out. And
I think that's one thing. Speaking of that, speaking of Vanderbilt, but Pavia, I think that's one thing that kid has a little bit of. I think he's a kid who, I mean, he just puts it all out there. I mean, I think he's a little bit mature. He's not afraid of anybody. You know, I think he's you know, he doesn't have that you know, that scared, you know.
Oh, he don't play scared. No, he doesn't at all.
I mean, we talked about Casey Clausen in the preseason. We was hoping Nico would be
more California.
More Casey Clausen like, because Casey was one of these kids that, you know.
He never seemed to get rattled.
No.
You know, he throws an interception. You know, first off, he's going to be the guy chasing you down and knocking your pecker in the dirt, to be honest about it. And then come out the next play when he gets back on the field and come right back at you.
Yeah, he's going to have that same demeanor as he did when we was up 14, whether it was down 14. So you want that kind of guy, especially leading the team on offense and defense.
Yeah. Hopefully Tennessee can come out kind of quickly against Vandy. And if it does, if there are any nerves, that should settle them down. And Vanderbilt's not really built.
And, you know, remember, guys, we're going to have a preview of Vanderbilt and talk a little bit about some other stuff there, too, here in a day or so. We'll talk about it actually a little bit after we shut this off. But we're going to talk about that. So make sure you look for that. Something else we was going to say, Tim. I lost my train of thought there. What was it?
I have no earthly idea.
I was going to talk about Vandy, something to do with Vandy.
Or was it the fact that they how they're very methodical? They run less offensive plays than any other team in the conference.
That's what it was. What I was going to bring up about Vanderbilt was if we could jump on them, because it's something you mentioned, we can jump on them and get ahead of them. The game could get out quick because they don't run a type offense that they can come from behind quickly.
They've been grinding it out.
They're a grinding it out team. They get less plays, so there's going to be less plays for them to run and possibly catch up. You know, and if they do get behind, that means they're getting a lot of 3 and outs, and that's more possessions for.
Unfortunately, if they get ahead or stay even with us, they can grind out and make it a 3-4 possession on each side of the half. And then you know what? You do pucker up a little bit when you're sitting over on the sideline, you're down 3, and the whole season's on the line. There's a pucker factor.
I mean, that is an absolutely issue going into this game, is the pucker factor, because you're right about that, Tim. I was thinking about that before we shot this video. When you play a team, if I'm a coach and I'm playing a team that is methodically moving down the field, getting 10 yards at a time, taking up 2/3 of a quarter on one drive, that bothers me more than any type of team that I could possibly be playing, because you sit here knowing, hey, we're down a touchdown
and can't get back on the field.
We got 2 drives less in this game. You know what I mean? Even it may seem like we got a lot, but we may just have 2 drives.
Yeah. So do I have to roll the dice
Here in the third quarter? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you never know. But guys, I hope you like the live chat here and discussing the playoff rankings. I know we enjoy this kind of stuff, and appreciate y'all with your comments, and look forward to doing the Vanderbilt preview and letting y'all know what we think a little bit about them. And in the meantime, guys, go Vols.
Go Vols.